Hello, Final Fantasy fans, and welcome back to another Opus full review. Today we're going to be talking about Earth, and I am joined by the wonderful Max, who just got back from his long weekend. How are you doing today, Max?
Hey, I'm great. Feels good to be home, let me tell you.
Yeah, probably sleeping in your own bed feels great because I know that's where I'm always at when I come back from a trip. And you guys watching this could be going to a trip yourself. We are going to be down in Orlando, Florida for the first MogNet Summoner Series. This is going to be a player ranking system that we're going to be hosting on MogNet, so you're going to get so many points for winning, what have you, top 8. And at the end of well, we're going to do a season, so I have to talk to Jim about if it's going to be a 6 or 12 month kind of program. But long story short, there's going to be at least a $100 cash reward at the end of the season for the top player. I realize it doesn't sound like a lot right now, but it's just going to be based on how many people are rolling into the event. So kind of as these events go on, if we continue to get support, I'm going to increase that to a reasonable amount at the end. However, to be put it all on the table, this is absolutely 100% a community driven event. And what I mean by that is it's the sucker who's trying to put all of this together. And for that reason, I want to say, if you guys would rather see, just 1,000, a 1K, store credit ARG type thing instead of these custom playmats and play arts, and we're trying to work on some foil promos as participation prizes. If you'd rather just have a flat 1K, let me know. It is a lot easier on my end, but I think that people would really like these mats. So the image you're seeing is a 2-player cloth mat that top 8 will get. If you judge the event, you will also get one. But outside of that, these are going to be extremely limited. Now, Max, you've been working with ARG for a little bit longer. I know that we both did stuff for Jim in the past, but do you want to talk a little bit more about how beautiful Florida is to visit maybe in December and why people should come down to the event?
Absolutely. This is one of the best times of the year for Universal and Disney, which is actually not that far from the venue. I mean, it's like maybe 10 or 20 minutes, if I remember correctly. I always end up going around this time of the year anyway. Like, the weather's fantastic. It's perfect walking around weather. It's just actually a great time to do anything. Or it's the best time to be in your hotel room playing Final Fantasy.
Absolutely. And again, so my big hope with this game is, or with this series, beyond obviously what Square Enix is going to be doing, is to have some massive $5,000 prize pool national championship at the end of it that would be through ARG. But in order to do that, we need to really do some amazing things with the game. So anything that you guys can support and come to these events, we are going to do Florida this month. We are going to Vegas in January. And then unconfirmed, but as long as the first 2 events go well, we are going to be in Indy in February, and the summon for that will be Shiva. Being from the Midwest myself, it's going to be cold and just seems like it was a good fit. So that's kind of our other spoiler for this video. So if you guys can make it to Florida and Vegas, we absolutely appreciate it. But with that, we will talk about the reason why you clicked on this video. We're going to be talking about some Earth cards. And I might be, yet again, a little bit harsh, but I feel very similar to how I did about Win. There's a few cards that are just, hey, these are absolutely great, and I can see where these will see play. And then there's other cards where I am just absolutely not sold on, and one of those is Atomos. And I love that for Pauper, so I will say that, hey, for Pauper, this is insane. Outside of that, not a big fan. So it's nice that it's an EX burst, and it's nice that it has options, but I think ultimately it's going to be a little bit expensive for what it's going to be doing. Do you think that this card is going to see any play in the MetaMax?
Um, Honestly, I don't know if it's the same meta play. I mean, it's interesting how it's trying to lure people in with the double effects, but its art's not great. The effect is kind of underwhelming for the cost. It does have EX burst at least, but I mean, I could see an argument where you play it in an all EX burst deck, but I feel like we're reaching here. This is like a card that's quickly replaced when we get new cards. However, this is the top selling card on TCG Player right now, as we're recording this video, and I'm not lying about that. So
I did see that.
America knows something I don't.
I swear, like, I don't know if just TCG Player was drunk, but I think it was like late Sunday, and then yesterday I checked it again, and this was the best-selling card for both days, which just blows my mind. So I'm gonna give it that. Moving on, we have Dark Knight. So shout out to standard units, and I love the self-damaging effect. When it enters the field, choose a forward, gains plus 1,000 power for each point of damage that you've received until end of turn. So it is a 3-drop 7K, so the stats are fine for that. And maybe this sees a place in there. There was a Earth, I think they did Earth, Water, Fasoya, Dark Knight Obviously, the Earth Cecil in this case as well for that whole shenanigans deck. And we did see that at Nationals, which is pretty interesting. But outside of that, it's certainly more aggressive. I will make a blanket statement as we're talking about this. Earth certainly got some more aggressive features in this set, which I do like, as Earth has always been kind of a more of defensive, bulk up kind of deck. So maybe this, we're talking about Ice Earth now and making a more aggressive build with like Magic Pot, Renoa, that aside. It's going to be interesting to see if this specific card sees play outside of that self-damaging Fusoya, Cecil, the other Dark Knights kind of package. Max, what do you think that this deck could, or this card could really shine in?
Well, I think that's the one deck it wants to be in for sure. Is the original Opus 2 Fusoya Earth Water deck. But actually, I don't know. I can't really lead into that. All I can tell you with this is a good standard unit. Like unlike some of the other ones that I've kind of ranted about. Its effect is honestly not the worst. It's still kind of loose to try and find a fit in your deck, but it's not really that bad. It's an okay card.
Absolutely. Moving on then to Vincent. Do you want to kick it off with him?
Let's see here. This is the searching Vincent, right? Yeah, it is. Why does it cost 5? Like, the whole algorithm, whenever you make an Earth deck and you try to find a way to play Vincent Legend, is you have to add some other Vincents because you want more than 3. And the promos hold a great spot of holding the strong number 4, if 5, if you're going to the extremes here for Vincents. This one doesn't wow me. I mean, it does. Then you do Vincent into Vincent on some EX first, but it costs 5. I just don't like. I don't feel incredibly underwhelmed casting it ever. But it can gain 1,000 power. That's 6. That's 4,000. I have really bad eyesight for anyone who doesn't know. It's 4,000 power in a turn. That's kind of big.
It does get big, but I mean, again, I think this plays into the. If you want to build a more aggressive build, you could do both the 3-drop Vincent and this Vincent, because they're both obviously the limit break, and then this one just gets a bunch of power, can be more aggressive. But I do like the idea that it can just cycle into, infinite death penalties. So I guess it comes down to, how much do you value death penalty and the fact that this can be an EX burst other than just pitching it to death penalty. And to your exact point, I'm not sure how crazy I am about it. Now, if we get some just, completely over the top, game changing effect, death penalty is good, don't get me wrong, but something even better than that says, hey, I just want to have, 12 Vincents, then I think absolutely you want to maximize on your EX burst ones, because you just get to search it up, and to that point, it does become like a 3-drop 7K because it replaces the named card itself. So you get a card back, and the S effect is cheap as well, but I'm curious to see where this one goes. I do like the fact that it becomes huge, but outside of that, I'm still partial to death penalty as it is. I don't want to go on too much a rant about another trio because I talked about the Senna trio from Wind, and then we have Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse. So Max, do you want to talk about Wedge? And I may or may not add anything past that.
I'm actually kind of confused about Wedge here because like every other niche 3-drop backup has an EX burst, he doesn't, and I really do not feel that the Avalanche operative motif is so overpowered that they should not have an EX burst backup. I don't know if that was just that was just like an oversight or some deeper thing to come, like the new starter decks or something. But I don't know. Like I also really don't like him either. I mean, like it's cool. I can get some of the things that I can get with him, but like its art is just not impressive.
Yeah, having the 3 of them just sit and look at you on the field feels pretty bad. So you're doing all this work that you get to search for a card and get is it plus 2,000? We'll confirm that when we get to it. I think it's plus 2,000 bonus that you can get. So if you are playing a Final Fantasy VII deck, absolutely go ham for it, go all in. I'm sure there's some Final Fantasy VII deck out there that's using some combination of obviously the new Light Cloud. We're bringing back Zach. We have Magic Pot. We have the Tutor Jesse. There's a lot of, deck searching that you can do. So I think that, it gets a buff in that sense. But I had to look at the backup configuration to see if there's even room for all 3 of these, which I'm not sure that there is, but, yet to be determined. Then we have 2-drop Pugilist, which I'm curious to see if we're going to see like an Earth Water standard units, or I guess Actually, so I don't even know if I'd go if I'd go Earth, Water, or Earth, Wind. You know, the different backups. I think you still want Water because of Warrior Light. I'm just going to assume. And then but in Wind you have things like Ranger, which is just absolutely insane. So this is a very interesting card that obviously, if you love standard units, you're going to love this card. And I think it's going to be absolutely playable in that deck. It just the deck badly needed a 2-drop that could be threatening in itself. Otherwise, it's mostly focused around the 3 or the 4, or that very late game Knight. But I think this is one that you don't hate seeing multiples of because obviously it's common, so you can play multiple of them, and it's just going to be huge at the end of the day. Are you a fan of the standard units package, Max?
No, not the package, but this card. This card's actually insane. This is one of the best Goldust targets they've printed because you can just like pop out 4 gold, like 4 standard units, and you actually have a real threat out that can push over things. He also just goes in some of the other things. Like again, Earth Fire is kind of. I haven't made this deck. I don't know that I can consign myself to make a Pugilist Marauder deck, but like
yes,
that's something that can be there. But I don't know, man. Look at him. He's got that lean back swag. He's just this is a card. This is a force to be reckoned with. I already have my foil one, so I know
you're
I'm
all
ready.
set then. Yeah, I like him. I'm very interested to see where that card's going to be going because again, it seems like Earth had this hint or a sub theme, if you will, on a more aggressive strategy, and obviously he's going to be one of them. And then we have Black Belt enters the field, choose the 4 you control, plus 5,000 power till end of turn. So I'm beating a dead horse by leading into this, but it's an aggressive backup that you're playing to push through damage. That's all that this is. And it's great for what it does because plus 5,000 is a significant amount at the end of the day. So if you're playing a low curve, aggressive, earth focused deck, I'm all in on this card. If you're playing probably literally anything else, there's other backups you probably want to be utilizing that you can play early and then get some better value out of, maybe late game, where say the Monk, where it's plus 3k and Brave. I'm personally a bigger fan of kind of an overall statement. But do you think that there's going to be a aggressive deck somewhere in here, Max, or is this kind of a card that is just going to be pushed off to the side because it doesn't have any kind of other versatility kind of late game?
We need an Earth landfall deck for that to work. Like, I don't know, looking at this card just makes me want to play like originals in the car, mono red, just have like staggering peaks. Just +2. This card's actually kind of interesting. I don't think I actually read this card before now. Like, I thought I did, but like all those stupid little black belts and geomancers blur together. But like, honestly, I don't think it's in the world to like a certain game states where you can just pop that card and you can obviously try to push forward or make a bad trade for them. This card's fine.
Then we have Black Mage, choose a 4, it cannot become dull by your opponent's summons or abilities. And here we get to the point where Earth 2-drops really start combating on what you want to do. This is obviously going to be a more defensive strategy, can really make Ice players hate their lives, which Guy already does a wonderful job of. I'm not sold on it either way. I think if you have just a billion people playing Ice, then just go for it. But this is what I'm kind of sitting on the fence about. I want to see how the meta develops, how much of these dull effects are going to be relevant. Now, I think Ice is insane, so probably going to be important, but we'll see where it goes from here. Does Black Mage do anything for you, Max, or is this one going to be a pass for its kind of very pointed effect?
Well, I'm noticing a trend with all Ingus-themed Final Fantasy III units. They're usually the better ones. He does have the powerful jewelry, which is a little bit more swag than the blue bow tie, as we saw in the Ice video. But his effect is like, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, it lets you have mobile Guy without playing Guy, which is kind of good, which means you're not consigned to Guy forever to the end of time. But like, I don't think there's much to lose by just shoving this in any Earth deck just to kind of like hedge a matchup against Ice, especially with everything new out. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a 3-year-old to play. It's a 2-drop. It's not unique. Just discard it from mana if you don't want it. It's just a land backup.
Fair enough. Kefka, I have very mixed feelings about, so I'm going to let you start it off with this one.
I'm not a fan of this card. I mean, I sat down and I tried to do the math about it. I mean, it at least is an 8-drop that shoots something, and breaks it. But you play it from your hand, and you sack 3 things. 3 things were in your hand. That's 6 mana, crystal points, crystal energy, whatever. And by doing that, I mean, you get your little. You save 2, and you get to pop something, but it can pop a monster too, which is cool. I don't know. You really can't you can't really hardcast it either. Like if it had the ability to like get -2 cost for each thing that you could sack,
I'd
then
be
that would
all
be
for
sweet.
that.
Yeah, but like it's set at 3. It's like 3. It's all or nothing. So I'm kind of against it.
I definitely like where if we're placed in a world where we're getting some kind of value out of breaking our own stuff. Again, Renoa is just kind of the go-to example in this one. But yes, that makes it kind of redundant. You're going to dull their guys and kill one, but well, if you dulled it, it shouldn't be a problem anyways, what have you. And then, you have things like Zach where you can then tutor up a light cloud. There's certain things you can be doing with that, but this is one of those cards where I want it to be good, and there's probably a deck for it somewhere. I can't fathom it for the life of me. Because it's.
Golbez. Duh.
I mean, the issue there is Golbez needs the plus 5,000 power backup where you just can't afford. Obviously, you play the backup, early on because you needed to push forward with your 2-drops. Then you just sit this in your hand, and it's like, well, this is where we're at. But
you break Golbez, you play your 4 backups, then you cast another Golbez, then you get rid of. Then you attack poorly with one of them because it has haste and they block, and then you get mad because they block. And you play this Kefka from your hand, getting rid of your other 3 forward, and then target your own Golbez with his effect, and then you just get 4 new backups. And you tell them to go, and you look at them and see if they can concede.
Well, it does say opponent controls, unfortunately, but for his
it does say
break
opponent
effect.
control.
So you have to you can break your own guy for cost, but yeah. You can break your own Golbez is the important part, but I've talked to some people about it already, and it's like I feel like if you're doing I'm playing this because I want to break itself, I'd rather just play Famfrit, for example, in that place. So interesting card. I'm not sure how I feel about it being legendary, but or legend rather, but I'm gonna keep this one in my back pocket for what point do we get valuable enough forwards and or monsters with these break effects that make it worth it. Something that you don't want to be breaking because you want it for its plus 2,000 power is Goblin. Again, I really like this as just a kind of a more aggressive build, make your opponent having to think about if they want to potentially make a bad trade because you can use this. Interesting that here is that it doesn't draw itself like many of the other 1-drops do, but I think plus 2,000 power is something to certainly play around with. Again, in those more aggressive decks, sure, but I'm not sure if this plays a part in the slower decks that want to focus around having these massive bodies already. Does Goblin get a smash or pass from you, Max?
Gosh. I like him. He's like the mobile version of the Golem summon, but you can obviously use animate strategies with him. But that said, I don't want him in my deck as a deck slot. He's better than Flan to me, just because you can trade with that. I mean, Flan's ugly. This isn't much better, but it is.
Moving on, I'll give you Jesse as well, since you love the art so much.
This is just one of the best cards in Earth right now. Like, this card's real. Like, Final Fantasy VII Earth Fire, that's a deck. Like, this makes your your starter deck Cloud cost 5, and it's already a backup, so you only have to discard 2 cards from your hand to play it to get that awesome art.
Yes, where the art takes over. So I know everyone's going to be screaming and saying that you lose out on the tutor version, the 3-drop, but I think if you just focus on the value that you're going to be getting from Cloud and Barret over the course of the game versus getting that 1 tutor effect and being done with it, I think quite a few people will slowly start to go in this direction. Now, of course, if you're playing Vincent, then you're obviously playing the other one because you can tutor Vincent and what have you. But the other thing to note here is that, yes, it is only your Cloud and Barret's that are reduced by 1. There's a post in the US group where the Japan text wasn't perfectly translated. That is a very common thing in Japanese trading card games, for those that are unaware, that has a, one word missing. But if you take into principle how other cards have been printed, or yes, to a point, common sense, it is only going to be your own effects. That stated, please always make sure to either check the CR, check the original Japanese, text if possible. You can go on Square Enix's website, look up the text, copy and paste into Google Translate. Spoiler, it'll probably be right on Google Translate, or at least it was in other card games that we'd experienced. And you can still get to that point. And then, as a last resort, if you want, you can always go to Twitter for our more complex rulings, if you will. But ultimately, please do not hesitate to ask in the US group, but let us focus on kind of what we'd expect the card to do. And again, I love both Cloud and Barret cards, so this is absolutely a card that I am going to be excited to see play. And because we do have some of those starter cards and the other Clouds and Barrets that we've got early on, there's probably a aggressive Final Fantasy VII deck that's going to be really, really good. And another one that the community is quite divided on, from what I can tell. So I'll go ahead and start with this one. I think that, first I'll state that I think it's fine that you can run both Shantottos in a deck, because they both have the ability to either just discard if you have the other one, but more importantly, the 6-drop has the S effect. So if you have the 7-drop, you can just use it for essentially the same thing and get the value out of it. I know that there's a lot of people who are either trying to jam this in just every single deck that plays Earth, which, right or wrong, we'll end up seeing. But I very strongly feel that this is only going to be going in the defensive decks that want to be able to keep this up for the block effect. And it's not, I think quite a few people were calling this the best legend in the set, and that's just something I certainly don't agree with. I think the card's good for what it is. I think that I completely agree with the legend rarity that this has, especially over some of the other legend rarities that we've seen, especially in this video and the win video alone. But I'm going to put it on the side that it's good, but it's not over the top good as many other people have thought very early on. What's your take on it, Max?
Before I comment, I need to look around real quick and make sure Matthew Okimoto is not outside my window before I unleash my opinion. Okay, so I like this card, but only in like a few specific decks. This card is not very good, and you don't just throw it in every deck. Like, this card does more against you than it does for you. But like if you think of like the original like Opus 2 Earth Water control decks that featured Warrior of Light, I don't remember which person in the UK talked with it was a very light forward deck. It was more like backups, more like summons. This is the perfect card for that. Like, this is a lot better than doing like push engines, because I mean, if they deal with it, there's good chances you can set up ways to like ricochet their entire board off, and you just have more wipes. I mean, it belongs in something like that. You can't just play like your traditional Earth deck, and you play like your Yang, Ursula, and then you like turn 2, you go Shantotto, and then you're just like, all right, let's go. And like, it just doesn't work with this card.
Yeah, I think it's, people are starting to play with it a bit more and realize that it's just not that auto-include. But in the decks that, wanted this card, this is 100% what they were expecting. 1-drop Warrior 4000. We are just going to straight up
I'll take this one. No, give me my 2 seconds.
Go ahead.
All right. This here is another front runner for good token art. I was going to comment on that on Dark Knight. I thought I was going to be serious here, but we see now how that went. But yeah, after this is done, I'm actually going to go buy a couple more foil. Got to get 9.
Yeah, I got nothing past that, so we're just going to skip along. Dadaluma, I believe is how you pronounce it. I honestly do not remember this guy at all.
Dude, same.
Yeah, shout out to Monks, though. I think card's great. It just creates a lot of really interesting positions to force your opponent into. It is a card that just says, I'm going to be coming at you and threaten to deal 4K, if not more, if you try to do something to it. So 100%, I like this card. I think it's going to see play somewhere. I just don't know where yet and what decks it's going to be in. But hell yeah. What about you, Max?
I don't. This card is good. It's just very weird. It's clunky right now. Like it's like the spiritual successor to Cecil, Dark Knight Cecil, but like, I don't know. Like it's really hard to like get the most value out of him being like when he's dealt damage effect. Like you obviously want to finish something off. I mean, you somehow want to get in a scenario where you're blocking a party attack, and you can trade for like two things. There's nothing with really like 12,000 power other than some steroid Prish that you're gonna like trade up on. I mean, I guess it's good that he's like golem proof. I mean, they can't really golem against this thing. I mean, he will bop it, but he's good. He's at least he's on stat and everything. I mean, I wish he was a monk and not a martial artist. And maybe I'd give him a little bit of a higher rating in my head, but he's not bad.
I just really like him in a Earthfire, and maybe I might be a little bit biased because I want to put all the 6 arts together, but trying to snap jam a Final Fantasy VI Earthfire deck to really capitalize on the ping effect. I love 7-drop Tama as well. I think that this is bloody fantastic. Basically, this card to me says, if a Delita's in your break zone, pay 2, pay for Delita, get it into the field, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And then you can pay 6 for the effect, which is expensive. I get it. To play another Earth Forward of cost 5 or less from your break zone, of course, it has to go onto the field dull, and you can only use it during your turn. So that is that last sentence basically in there does make it a little bit worse than what I'd like. But one, just getting back Delitas, absolutely, and it opens up the utility for some other cards. But this is another one of those things that I just want to keep this on my radar. As we keep going on for future sets, because it's only going to get better as 5 cost, 5 or less, I guess I should say, Earth Forwards are printed. So, it's probably only going to be a 1 of because of the cost, maybe 2 of at most. But I would expect this to see play in the higher curved focused Earth decks, if you will. Do you have any love for Tama, Max?
I like the other Tama much better. I don't really like this card because it costs 7. I personally like Zeramis way better than this card. I think Zeramis is like a very underrated card last set. But,
my feelings are hurt now.
I mean, it does everything you said. You do that, but like, I don't know what you do when you're playing someone and then like you discard 3 cards from your hand and tap the backup and you lay something down and they just like pack up their board like you just got Shantotto and they look and they see it's Tom. I don't know what they do. I don't know what you do in that situation either. Like you've let them down.
I can definitely see that. So it's going to be interesting, but we are a house divided on this one, and we will see which way it goes. I am just going to give you Delita because I admittedly have no idea how I want to feel about the 3-drop version of him. So be my guest.
Well, obviously, him and Ramza create some of the best art ever, except it was from War of the Lion, so that's disappointing. Original Tactics for Life. His effect's actually not that bad. I just thought you have to like figure out how you want to use it. I mean, it's not something you aggressively slap down, but it's really for very clogged board states. I mean, it allows you a lot of flexibility with things you don't really care about. I mean, you might have a turn where you've played a Gipple, you get that little Gipple boost. When you come back around and they have like a threatening 4-drop like an Amon or something, and then you just delete you pop it, you're your Gipple, and then you play another Gipple for some reason, and you go, yeah.
I do like the option there at the bottom that might get missed. It's just when he's chosen by summons or abilities, period. So your opponents and your own. So it's very easy to boost him up for those effects. But again, the biggest issue with this one is that it's named Delita, and there's 6 now, 5 or 6. It's just really interesting. Like it combos very well with some of the like random lightning cards that want to break themselves anyways for just absolutely over the top max value. So I do like this as a possible card in like that heavy earth lightning build. But again, what you're losing out of it is just heartbreaking. And again, I might be a little bit biased, I will admit, towards 5-drop Delita, but I have absolutely fallen in love with that card the few times that I have played it. So this is one that I will love to see which way the meta goes. Get could be completely wrong about, and I'm more than okay with being wrong with this because I really want to be able to pull off a Earth Lightning deck where I can put those 2 arts together, if just for a moment, and be really happy with it. But we will see where that goes. Max, we were actually talking about this card quite a bit, and you were trying to, talk about how great Thief can be, and the fact that he's a 7K Brave. And I don't think really too much needs to be said past that. It's great what he wants to be doing in Earth, and the fact he has Brave is awesome. But that's about as much as I can give it without having the chance to, really test it myself. Are you a fan of this in most Earth decks? No Earth decks? Where do you think it's going to find a place?
Well, I think he belongs in decks that just aren't solely Earth. I mean, he's like the perfect accoutrement to like your monster deck. I mean, honestly, that monster with Brave is just literally what you want. I mean, you don't even have to like do anything beyond that. You just animate him, and he's just got Brave, so you can attack and you can pay another to block. It's perfect, and he costs 2.
2 is definitely a good spot to be in. And one of the other jokes that we're having is trying to go really deep and make this, Earth, Water, Monsters deck, which is probably just awful. I'll say that right now. But basically the whole idea was that, hey, turns out monsters are really good against things like Shantotto. So you can just Shantotto, animate all your stuff, and swing. But that, of course, is probably a little bit living the dream. Going on to Barret, I love this card. I'm just throwing it out there. So again, we have Jesse. It's basically a 3-drop AK with Brave, and the fact that, when a job Avalanche Operative goes from, other than Barret, of course, goes to Field of Break Zone, deals 2,000, everything, and you can Satellite Beam for another 5,000. Just sign me up. I am all about this card with all the different effects that Fire has to increase damage, or increase damage to a Ford or multiple Fords with various effects. It's not unreasonable that this is doing, 7, 8, 9 X amount of damage with those different cards. So I am 100% gassed for this Final Fantasy VII Fire Earth deck. Again, focusing on the 2-drop Jesse version for this. Outside of that, probably doesn't see play, because obviously you want to focus on that Avalanche Operative as well. But I think it's absolutely amazing what they did for Final Fantasy VII in this set. So, Max, you can now keep me probably in line with my overhype on Barret.
You're actually pretty similar and close on this. So, most of my test group actually loves this card. I haven't really bought the farm on this one yet. I mean, he's good. He's definitely the Barret you want to play, but I don't have much of an opinion of doing 2K to the board. I mean, it helps, but like not against the decks you want help against. But I mean, when you're playing anything that's not water, that's fantastic. And also you get Satellite Beam, so you could just like pull out your cell phone and act menacing when you activate that.
Oh, there we go. And then finally, I was wondering, I forgot where this guy was in the list. Then we have Biggs. Choose one job. Avalanche Operative gains plus 1,000 power. If you control Wedge, it gains plus 2,000 power until end of turn instead. So again, Jesse, we want to play Biggs and Wedge. How much do you really want to have that ugly artwork stare at you? And how much do you value 2,000 power to only job Avalanche Operatives based on what else might be in your deck? I think versus some other 2-drop options we have, it's going to be tough to find room for it. But again, if you're all in, absolutely all in on that Avalanche Operative, sub-theme, you probably are trying to find room for this card just because the plus 2,000 buff can be relevant. But outside of that, not a fan. What do you think, Max, wrapping up the last Avalanche Operative card?
He has the best art of the trio. He is a really bad Phantasmal Harlequin. Phantasmal Harlequin did it 10 times better. I don't see a point in playing this card. I guess that you're making your like first 30 minutes of Final Fantasy VII deck, and that's where we are.
Not terrible spot to be. Sometimes you just want to, reminisce on the wonderful time that was Final Fantasy VII. But moving on then, we have Geomancer, and I'll go ahead and let you start with this 2-drop backup.
I actually bought a set of these for because I think it's actually good. It's very interesting. I think it's actually pretty interesting because it does give you Brave for something. It's pretty cool, honestly.
I think it has a pretty cute outfit, so I'm going to give it that as well. But yes, I do like the option to have that emergency Brave. Just not sure what, probably running 2 in a list just to have them. 2-drop. This is the thing that I always come back to. Like 2-drop backups in Earth is very competitive, which maybe just lower kind of your overall curve and just have more 2-drops. It's probably fine too. But I like where it's going. and then Prish, which I am just over the moon excited for. This whole idea that you can have Prish and the previous Kefka with Shantotto and have all these amazing Earth backups and all this great, powerful 2-drop, forwards that you can be playing, and then you can play the Phoenix summon, so you do like an Earth Splash Fire deck, and you just get super value out of 2-drops in this. So I absolutely want to find the Earth deck that this goes into, because you now have that entire Prish recycle engine, which admittedly will probably get clunky until you fix the numbers and figure out exactly how many copies of which Prish you need and when. But I love this card. I think it's something that I absolutely want to brew with. I don't know exactly where it's going to be going yet, but again, I am very excited for this. Max, now this is probably one that I have a feeling that you're going to say, the comment about how many Prish you have to run for this, but I'll absolutely welcome you to keep me in check on my hype on this one as well.
Hey, so Prish is amazing. It's honestly, I actually like this card a lot. I mean, I kind of one of the cards that stood out to me. I mean, I'm not going to make a Prish deck though, but I mean, it's a 2-drop. It does what you want. It can get bigger. It's just over for the stat value, and has an insane replacement effect. There's no bigger beating until like, I don't know, just like getting like a trade out of this card somehow, and then just actually slamming actual Prish. That's huge.
And I mean, you're in Earth, and you have to be playing for the Earth backup, so you have to basically just auto assume that it's a 2-drop 8K. Yes, you have to wait till a little bit in the late game to get to that point, but it's a 2-drop 8K with Brave, with a replacement for even bigger Prish. Sign me up. I am hype. Then we have Hecaton Care. I'm going to let you take this one as well, because I am another card that I'm super biased for one very specific deck that I mentioned in the last video, so I don't want to harp on that too much and offer hopefully some fresh perspective on this card. So take it away.
Hecaton Chair is the sweetest card, and like one of the sweetest cards rather, because we still got some good ones left. It finally gives you Fight Club. So like if you just imagine that it's Edward Norton, like you really can't go wrong. And beyond that, I mean, it's really just kind of all you need. It's just efficient removal. I mean, Earth is always bigger than everything else anyway, so you can definitely formulate a scenario where you're actually not losing a forward using this, and you're not burning out your hand to play it.
Yeah, the number one place that I go to is the Earth Wind Mill deck, because this is quite literally everything possible that deck wanted. You go, oh, I'll block with this, I'll Kefka with it, kill your guy, mill 2. Oh, by the way, before I end a turn, I'm gonna fight something else, kill that as well, mill more cards, and just get that little bit extra value that you need out of something that was already planning to die. And at that point is just obscenely large in power as well. So I'm super excited for this card. And again, to the point of cheap, efficient removal for when you can kind of set up the board state. If you're not playing against like fire or something, or maybe with water you have to play around bounce and whatnot, but not all decks have that ability to get that extra ping damage in where they'd want to, so they can't make it a proper trade in their favor. It's always going to be I'm going to be 2K, maybe 3K bigger than you, get rid of your chump blocker, and move on about my business. So a card that I'm very excited for. I think it's limited in the amount of decks that it's ultimately going to be going in, but super excited. And then we have Magic Pot, which I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think this was absolutely the most overhyped card in the set, at least from what I've seen. I think it's awesome in like maybe 2 decks, and you're probably not playing it outside of that. Max, how do you feel about Magic Pot?
This card is very, very overrated, but it's not bad at all. It's just that, like I knew and was trying to tell people, like small on the side, is that you have to work this card. You're not just going to play it and do it and just reap some mad benefits. You really have to construct a scenario, and like it works best with like things that have break effects, obviously like Golbez or Renoa. Personally, I think the best thing you can do with this thing is like popping 2 Squalls, or like popping a Renoa and keeping a Renoa. That's threatening.
Exactly. And Ice Earth was basically the deck that comes to mind. I know some people are trying in Golbez. Again, I could be just completely wrong, because I guess Magic Potting in Golbez, get another Golbez is great, but I would still just rather being able to play Fan for it, remove their guy. Yes, you have a bigger board. Golbez can remove it, what have you. But I don't think that's going to be the ultimate best use out of it. Again, could be completely wrong. But I'm very interested to see, where does this card stand in the kind of mid-meta of Opus 4? That's the answer I wish we had, the insight for right now. But of course, we have to wait and see how the meta develops, see what people are playing, what have you. But this is a card I'm keeping an eye on, but again, was absolutely the most overhyped card so far. We have yet another monk, so Max, I will give you the 2-drop monk as well.
And we have the Always a Bridesmaid, Never a Bride card of the set. It wants to do something, but like I guess it's kind of cool to have a way to like have protection on attack. But why do I have to telegraph it with instead of having Titan? But I mean, at least I can use it as a backup, so I can play other summons. It's like honestly, Earth is like the biggest shell of summons that are like that make me want to play them. But you always have to choose from like the biggest pool. It's always tough. So maybe Monk can help hedge on that. I mean, I definitely pick some up, but I think at least initially here, I'm not quite ready to put it into like a deck of some sort that's playing Earth. But what I can tell you is that Ingus has got a lot of great targets in Earth, especially this.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. There's a great variety of standard units that you can play for backups now. And again, I'm very much in the same, idea here that it wants to be doing something. It probably wants to go for some matchup. But ultimately, when we think about kind of the overall meta and what decks we'd expect and the, what is the likelihood that this card is going to do what it wants to do and really be that game changing, in a 6, 7, 8 round event, what have you, it does start to shrink in appreciation, if you will. So it's something to keep an eye on, but not that exciting past that. Another card that I really wish was more exciting, the Flame General himself. Why? Just why? That's all I'm going to say for this card. You can do really cute things like devout it back or just not care about what you're going to be using and just sacrifice himself. Otherwise, you can do, Cecil so he can keep himself around. So in Earth Water, I mean, sure, go for it. Maybe you're playing it as a one-of in your ice deck just to be cheeky, what have you. But outside of those two, and please let me know if I'm missing anything in this one, Max. This is just a card I can't understand how it's a hero. I absolutely can't. Other than the fact it can deal 9k damage instead of 8, which is extremely relevant, but that's a side note here.
Dude, this is Rufus the Traveler. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that card is fine. Like, it's just removal that you can create niche scenarios where it lives incredibly niche.
I'll say, what, you're sacrificing your own goblin, basically?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, you're playing it, you play it like Odin, and that's that. It's an Odin that you just play in, and you pop something for 9k, and you pop him. And it's just a summon that's a creature. But if you come in, trigger to any effect that gives them increased power, then you keep something and you just keep a 4-drop 8k. I don't know that I want to commit that far, but like that's definitely an option.
Yeah, and again, the fact it deals 9k, I will give it that. I think it makes it significantly more attractive than if it was just 8, but that is still a lot of work you have to be doing for it. So with that, and I know I did dog on the card, we picked Magic Pot for our card that we're most excited for. And I'm going to say this, it's only because of the Ice Earth deck, and as Max has mentioned, I mean, Lagunas, Squalls, and Renoa, like basically Final Fantasy VIII plus this card is probably going to be insane. I like the idea of just being able to discard my entire opponent's hand, but again, outside of that, I can't find a home for this card, so I hate to kind of hype it up here right at the end, but I'm very excited for it in Ice Earth, and I think that's absolutely where it wants to be doing the most amount of work for it. So Max, what was your kind of pick for this set in Earth?
Jesse.
Completely fair. That's pretty much what my two were as well, because again, everyone knows I'm a sucker for these themed decks, but Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII definitely gained some very key things, off element for Final Fantasy VIII, not on element for Final Fantasy VII because of Barret things, but again, I'm just really excited to see what direction this goes in for Opus 4. So with that, Max, do you have any kind of closing comments or thoughts about Earth, about Opus 4 in general, anything that you'd like to add before we kick it off?
You better show up at the Mognet Summer Series,
Yes, please.
especially if you live in Florida. I'm creating a list.
And checking it twice. Since we
Yeah,
are,
Christmas.
since we're close to Christmas, I'm very sorry and I hate myself, but I had to make that reference because we were counting down the days now. What, 20? Yeah, woohoo! 20 days till Christmas, yeah! All right, so with that, we really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, Max, for joining me yet again on one of these videos. It's certainly it helps because I think it's people want to hear two different sides of it, and maybe some combating opinions. So I definitely appreciate that. If you guys liked it, drop a like, comment down below what card you're excited for most, and make sure to subscribe for future Final Fantasy trading card game content. So on behalf of myself, Max, and the rest of Six Sages Gaming, thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next video. Have a good one. And this video made possible thanks to the Patreon support of viewers such as yourself. Thank you to our honorary sages.